fall. You know what that means, right?
Hmm.
Sweaters, pumpkin spice lattes, and you know it, a whole bunch of new anime. Ready to jump into the fall 2024 season with me?
Always. Trying to pick what to watch with all these new releases can be a bit overwhelming, to be honest.
For real. Let's be real, there's always that one genre that's everywhere, and this year it's definitely isekai everywhere. But we're going to help you figure out which ones are worth your time.
Right. So are you feeling isekai fatigue yet, or are you still holding out hope?
You know, it's interesting, I think, even when it feels overdone, there's something about that isekai escape fantasy that people just keep coming back to, you know?
Mm.
That idea of being whisked away, becoming the hero in a new world. I think the challenge is how creators keep that interesting. Okay, so true. Well, speaking of keeping it interesting, the first show on our list is Hitori Bino Isekai Kyaku. And honestly, it sounds like it's hitting all those classic isekai tropes. You've got your average guy who suddenly gets magical powers, destined to become, like, crazy strong. I'm already picturing the monster girls fawning over him.
Yep.
But the YouTube review did mention a sexy stereotype, so maybe there's some self-awareness there. Who knows?
Yeah, it seems like some creators are leaning into those tropes on purpose, like they're in on the joke.
Right.
But then you have a show like Tensei Kyoku Kante Skill Denariaguru. No, this one got my eye. Instead of the typical superpowers, the main character can actually see everyone else's stats, kind of like he's walking around with that RPG character sheet in his head.
Ooh, okay. That's a cool twist. It's not just about being super strong. It's got to be about strategy in that case, right?
Exactly. That's what I mean about subverting expectations. You see that more and more in anime, taking those familiar genres and finding a new angle, a new way to mess with the audience a little bit.
And that's what keeps things interesting, right? You think you know exactly what you're going to get, and bam, the
Uh-huh.
creators throw in a curveball. So yeah, even though isekai is, like, as popular as ever, it seems like there are still some creators trying to shake things up a bit.
Okay, so moving on from worlds of magic and fantasy, how about we talk about something a little bit closer to the heart? Romance. And let's be real, we've all seen enough high school romance animes, right? This season, let's talk about some shows that are taking us beyond those classroom walls into some, well, pretty wild territory. Think aliens, demon grandmas, even a little bit of Yakuza romance thrown in there for good measure. I love it. It's exciting to see romance explored in these different settings, don't you think? It just adds so much more depth and takes it beyond those typical will they, won't they tropes.
Exactly. Like, okay, first up, we've got to talk about Deed Dan, because this one sounds completely bonkers. So we've got two students, and one of them is being visited by aliens, right? And then the other one, get this, is possessed by their demon grandma.
That sounds wild. It's like this whole genre blending thing that's happening in anime right now is just going crazy. You've got sci-fi, supernatural, comedy all mixed into one show.
I know, right? It's like they threw it all in a blender and said, let's see it happens. I'm kind of here for it, though.
Me too. It keeps things interesting.
Totally. Now, speaking of interesting, how about this? We've got a vagabond who's mistaken for a dead princess in Hozifiru Okuno Nina. That's a new one for me. Have you ever seen a premise quite like that before?
Not really. It sounds like it has all the makings of a really good historical romance, though, right?
Yeah.
You've got the palace intrigue, the hidden identities, the forbidden love aspect. It makes you wonder what will happen when her real identity is revealed.
Oh, for sure. Those hidden identity plots always get me hooked. Okay, but now for something completely different. Let's talk about Rei's Watan, because Yakuza romance, that's not something you see every day.
Rei's Watan is definitely an interesting concept. It's not a world you often see explored in romance anime, and I think that's what makes it so intriguing, right? You've got this clash between this dark, dangerous world of the Yakuza and then the vulnerability of a love story.
Right. And who doesn't love a good forbidden love story? It's like Romeo and Juliet, but with, maybe a few more shootouts. Okay, so we've talked about romance with aliens and gangsters, but this season also has some cool shows that are taking those classic anime themes and kind of flipping the script,
Mm-hmm.
We're talking historical epics, mecha battles, all with a twist.
It's smart. History and mecha have always been popular. And I mean, think about it. History gives you all these epic conflicts and settings and, well, giant robots battling it out is just cool, right? But it's all about how you make it fresh.
Exactly, like Aeon no Miburo caught my eye.
Yeah.
It's set during that Shinsengumi period, samurai, political intrigue, the whole deal. But they're adding magic into the mix.
Ooh, that's a good combo. I always wonder how magic would change things if it was real, Plus, those fight scenes are going to be wild.
Right. Samurai with magic katanas, summoning mythical creatures. It's like Rurouni Kenshin meets like Inuyasha. Okay, that's going on my list for sure. And speaking of revisiting some classics, we're getting a whole new chapter in the Initial D universe with MF Ghost. Have you seen Initial D?
I have loved that show.
It's such a classic, right? Fast cars, those intense races. I feel like MF Ghost could be really awesome for longtime fans, you know?
Definitely. I'm always down to revisit those worlds and see how things have changed. Plus, you can't go wrong with some good racing action.
Absolutely. Okay, there's one more on our list. Blue Lock is coming back for another season. The first season had its moments, but man, that animation was all over the place. Hoping they stepped up their game this time around.
Blue Lock was interesting, though. That whole premise was really unique. The psychological thriller aspect of it all, those crazy trials. I'm curious to see where they go next with it. What about you?
I'm with you. I'm definitely curious. But before we wrap things up, I wanted to give a shout out to a couple of shows that might fly under the radar, you know, those hidden gem kind of shows.
Yes. Chikyu no Nitsu. If you're into history, this one sounds fascinating. It's set in 16th century Europe when the Catholic Church had so much power, and it explores the whole clash between religion and science.
Ooh, okay, that's a really interesting time period. What else you got?
Okay, on a completely different note, there's this show called Trillion Game. It's about these two guys who decide to use their coding and business skills to try to earn, wait for it, $1 trillion.
A trillion. With a T. That's some serious ambition right there. It's like that whole startup dream taken to the extreme.
Right. Makes you think, what would you do for $1 trillion?
Man, that's a question right there. Well, it sounds like fall 2024 is going to be packed with great anime. Whether you're looking for something familiar or something completely out there, there's something for everyone.
Exactly. And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg. The fun part is diving in and finding those shows you really connect with, right? So don't be afraid to explore and see what grabs you.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So as the weather cools down, get cozy, grab your watch list, and get ready for another amazing season of anime. We'll be back soon to break it all down on our next deep dive.